Welcome to the Small Business Made Simple podcast, brought to you by socialmediaandmarketing.com.au. Being in business is never easy, but it can be simple, or at least simpler. Join me, your host Jen Donovan, every week where we focus on marketing, social media, and working towards simplifying your business. You with me? Let's do this.
Gonna dream it big, 'cause someone out there listening. Everyone's got a voice to give, and it's time I heard you whistling, 'cause there's no point at all, in dreaming small.
Why, hey there, my fabulous listener. Welcome to episode 168 of the Small Business Made Simple podcast. Thank you, as always, for lending me your ears today. I know you have lots of choices out there, and I really do appreciate you making me one of them. I hope you're enjoying this podcast, and if you are, can you take a screenshot of you listening to the podcast? This is a great episode to do it on. I would love you to do that and then tag me on social media and make sure we are connected. That would be so super cool to learn a little bit more about you. And don't forget, the show notes for this podcast can be found at socialmediaandmarketing.com.au/168. And as Christmas gets closer, I'd love you to consider supporting rural and regional small businesses this year. You can shop with over 1,300 of them at spendwithus.com.au, which of course is my other business that I have. But I know that the people over there would really appreciate you spending your money with rural and regional Australia this Christmas. One of my most popular episodes of late has actually been around lumpy mail, a marketing strategy that many of us had actually forgotten about, or at least that was the feedback that I was given from my listeners. If you haven't checked that episode out, it was actually episode 156. You can, of course, find it at socialmediaandmarketing.com.au/156, or just scroll back wherever you're listening to this podcast and find episode 156. So this week, I'm more than just a little bit chuffed to bring to you an interview with Sandy Lowers, who launched a magazine, both in digital and print, called WB40, Women Beyond 40. We get so caught up in digital marketing strategies that we forget to look outside the box. And I put my hand up for that as well. Like, sometimes we are so digital focused, we forget about all the other marketing avenues and tactics and strategies that are available to us. But not Sandy. She's building a magazine empire. And honestly, I'm in awe of what she's doing. It's a real testament to looking outside the box, but even more importantly than that when it comes to marketing is knowing and listening to your audience. You know, that's what she's done. She's got to know her audience. She's listened to them, which has made her create or go and create a magazine, both in print and digital. So I guess the question for you is, before even we hear from Sandy, is the way you are marketing really the way that your audience wants you to turn up for them? That alone is a question that you should be pondering as you make plans for your business strategies. And I think it's such an important question that we perhaps don't think about. We, again, get in the rut of doing the same thing. What is it? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Is that what your marketing strategy looks like? Anyway, this interview is about Sandy and about doing print magazines as well as digital magazines. Look, Sandy is amazing. She's always been a creative soul. She's a mum and she's a career girl with an enormous rap sheet of achievements that she's done throughout her very short time. I can't wait for you to hear her story and hear what she's done and why. And perhaps if you really listen carefully, you can hear all the lessons on how you can actually implement some of this into your business to make it bigger and better just by listening to this interview. Look, I was just blown away at the gold in this interview. Yes, it's about magazines. Yes, it's about women beyond 40, but it's so much more than that if you put on your marketing hat and have a listen. So won't hold you up any longer. Here's Sandy. Enjoy. Sandy, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Jen. I am so excited. I've been really looking forward to this.
Me too, because we had a chat and no one even probably knows much about you just yet because you haven't introduced yourself, but we had a chat on your podcast, episode 50, I think it was, wasn't it? In the
That's
Good Girl
correct.
Confessional. So if you haven't listened to that one, you can hear Sandy and I chatting again over there. But Sandy, for my beautiful audience who doesn't know who you are and what you do, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. Thanks, Jen. I'm Sandy Lowries, and I am the creative director and founder of WB40, which stands for Women Beyond 40. And we are a magazine and a website for women who are 40, 50, 60 and beyond. And of course, we have a dedicated podcast, which is called The Good Girl Confessional, because we are anything but good girls. We don't believe women should be in the corner. No one puts baby in the corner, right? And we share the incredible hard-won wisdom of brilliant women on our podcast, some who are really, really well known and some that are not, but absolutely should be. And as you were just saying, you have been a beautiful special guest on our podcast. So it's great to be back here talking to you.
Yeah, so good. So, Sandy, one of the reasons why I wanted you to come on and have a bit of a chat to my audience is because you are the founder and creator of WB40, which is an online magazine which is actually going into print as well.
Yep.
Because I like to talk marketing, but this is a different type of marketing. I don't have an online magazine, I don't have a print magazine, so I wanted to hear some pros and cons and your journey to get there, because I guess a lot of people would say print is dead, but I think you and I are noticing a real movement there that it's not. So can you tell us the inspiration, first of all, I guess, for doing a magazine in the first place? Like, where has that come from in your journey to where you are now?
Yeah, it's been a hell of a journey. As a writer, I think for me, I was getting really, really frustrated that women over the age of 40, 50 are actually perceived very differently in the media, and that our value, according to mainstream media and society, seems to go down as soon as you hit that magic number, which is absolutely ridiculous, because so many women that I am surrounded by who are in that age demographic, and younger women who, in their 30s but heading to 40, who are remarkable and still are creating extraordinary businesses, doing brilliant things out in the world. I just got really frustrated with the bullshit narrative around that. I hope I can say that.
Yep.
And so I couldn't find a magazine that really spoke to me in the way that interested me. And that was really, I'm not interested in clickbait celebrity gossip. I am not interested in body shaming articles and how you can lose 5 kilos by summer, or how you can have a bikini ready body. I'm just not interested in that. And I think it's actually really detrimental for women that that's what's on offer in a lot of publications. And that's not all magazines, by the way. There are some really excellent ones out there, but I couldn't find any that were marketed purely to my demographic, my age demographic, that were challenging notions and narrative around ageism and sexism. And so I decided I would start one myself. And from the word go, we went straight to print and online on digital, because a lot of market research that we had done shows that women in this age demographic really are wanting an experience. They want to hold a magazine. And as you say, because they're sort of they were on the down, they were going down. I think people got really sick and tired of some of the mainstream media as well. But what we're finding is the women that buy our magazine and our beautiful readers are so excited to have it in their hand. It's a beautifully curated magazine. It is written by women, specifically for women. There is no, as I said, there's no celebrity, clickbait, bullshit and gossip, and no body shaming. And we are massively inclusive, and we embrace diversity. It's kind of written into our DNA. And that was really important to me as well, because I found that we didn't want tokenism. And, we've got some beautiful writers and readers who are disabled, proud disabled women, proud Indigenous women, women from all different backgrounds, women doing incredible things that, you know, we're not seeing that reflected back in a lot of mainstream media. And that's what we've set out to do. And I think we've just launched issue 6, and it was bi-monthly. It's going quarterly next year. But it's really resonated with so many people, and brilliant people who have picked it up, read it, and are thrilled with it, including, you know, people like Tara Moss. And, you know, I think it's been lacking. It's something that was really lacking for women in our age demographic.
Because we kind of grew up reading Dolly, Cosmo, all those magazines have gone. And to be totally honest, I didn't really realize they'd all gone until a few years ago when I went, you know, I had a news agent's custard client actually, and I was just browsing. So all those things went. And so that's why I guess we have this perception that print was dying, because all the things that we grew up with have gone. And I can see that's why we are perhaps the generation as well that love that sort of thing. You know, I was saying to you off air before, I love nothing more than on a Saturday afternoon grabbing a magazine and sitting out on my front porch with a cup of tea and, you know, doing some reading, or really just looking at pictures. Let's be honest. Sometimes if I haven't got my reading glasses with me, then I'm just about shot. But anyway, but yeah, I love that. And I love the tactileness of it. And I wonder, you know, whether some of these magazines just didn't have the foresight to go both digital and print, because that you're serving both people. Like, you know, I know it's focused, you know, women beyond 40, WB40, but really it really is for anyone to have a bit of a read, because the articles are so diverse, like you were saying.
Absolutely true. And some of our beautiful readers are women in their 30s. And listeners to the podcast, we're finding that we've got a lot of women in their 30s. And the other day was contacted by a gorgeous chick who's in her 20s who said, I am loving this and loving like all of this advice and brilliance from all these women. I think that's a really big point. Although we market it for this demographic that seems to have been overlooked, if you like, in mainstream media, really we are all about women and helping women to rise. And so regardless of your age, as you say, there's so much wisdom in these articles and it's brilliant. But when you are a woman who gets to your 40s and 50s, you know, we tackle subjects that are quite often called taboo by mainstream media, and we don't really understand the concept of taboo. So we are dealing with sexuality, and sex, you know, beyond menopause. And we're talking about perimenopause and menopause and health issues, divorce, whatever it may be, things that genuinely impact women in this age demographic. And I think that that's really important. You know, we live in a sandwich generation. We are women who are juggling elderly parents often, as well as teenage children who are graduating from high school, and you're entering a whole different phase of your life. And I think those are the things that need to be talked about.
Yeah, I remember Katrina Mercado, who has Marketing for Mums, when she was on my podcast talking about the women in their 40s and 50s and how much power they have, but we're not marketed to as though we have power. Like I look at my life and, you know, I have some control over my elderly parents and their spending and things like that. And then I have some control over my children that are very young adults. The same thing. So I've got a lot of power in the marketplace, but I'm not marketed to as the power of marketplace, which is, you know, so if anyone's listening and you've got, you know, marketing power out there, you know, it's quite the open gap for anyone that can get that formula right. So how has the platform been perceived? Like, how have you found the reception to what you're doing? The good, the bad, the excellent, and maybe, I don't know, has there been any negativity?
Do you know, at this stage, we've not received very much negativity at all. And it's been overwhelmingly positive. I think what's really beautiful is that some of the guests who come on the podcast are like, I didn't know about this platform, have then gone and looked at the platform. They're reading the magazine, they're all of it. And they're putting the word out there for us as well, which is brilliant because they feel seen. I think one of the most beautiful parts about WB40 is that women are reading it and actually some of the beautiful feedback. We get letters, we have a Dear WB40 section, and we print those letters because it's just beautiful. But they're actually seeing themselves reflected back in the pages of this magazine or on the podcast or on the website. And I think that's so important because there's a lot of tokenism that goes on out there in mainstream media, whereas we just want women to just be who they are and share their stories. And I think that that's massively important. I love, though, that you mentioned, Dolly, Cosmo magazines, because we had a beautiful reader very early on who basically said, Susan Jarvis, actually, and she's been on our podcast and has now written for the mag. But Susan actually said, she wrote us this beautiful letter and actually said, email, I grew up reading all of these things, and this is the punchy, edgier version, grown-up version of those magazines. And I think that's true. And I think we just really cut out all the crap and went, what do women really want to talk about? And what do they want to read? And what do they want to know?
Yeah. So I guess looking at it from a marketing strategy point of view, why a magazine? Why not an online blog that, is probably a lot more trendy, would certainly be looking at like a different type of business model? Why a digital magazine? And then why did you go print?
So we went print and digital immediately from the word go. But it's really interesting that you say that, because the Good Girl Confessional, which is the name of our podcast, actually started out as a blog, which I started, and it was an award-nominated blog back in 2013. And I wrote for women over the age of 40. That was
quite forward thinking back in 2013 to do a blog. So okay. Yep.
And gathered a gorgeous, loyal following of women, because I was talking about sex, dating, relationships over the age of 40 when I found myself suddenly divorced at 41. And, I think I started the blog when I was 43 and kept it going. It was great. And, it got listed in Elle magazine. Elle India listed it as one of the 5 top confessional blogs for everyone to read. Wow. And it was kind of a very dynamic thing. I don't think not many people were doing it back then. And I was pretty raw and I was very honest, and I didn't, skirt around the edges. I think what's really funny is when people go, what's trendy now? I guess in some ways I was part of that pioneering group who was already doing that. I see there are Facebook groups now. One is called Bad Dates of Melbourne, and she's basically talking about all of the bad dates and getting people to write in. We were already doing that back in 2013. And what was really fascinating back then was there were women contacting me saying, I thought I was the only one. I didn't know anybody else was actually out there on dating sites in their 40s. It was kind of fairly new too. Dating sites were fairly new. So it was pretty, and at times controversial, because I will say I wrote posts that, mentioned a whole lot of things. And I was shut down by Facebook probably about 5 times for mentioning the word vagina. And that's how archaic things were back then. Things are sort of improving now, but women can still get their pages shut down over crazy stuff. And so for me, it just kind of evolved, over time. What I found was, instead of me writing about dating and relationships, and I was in a relationship, that it became more about women's issues and women's issues over the age of 40. And then I had guest bloggers come on and share their wisdom and talk about their stuff and their perceptions. And then from then, it just sort of grew up, and I knew I really wanted this platform. I always wanted to do a magazine. Yeah. And I knew that women in this demographic would embrace a magazine, and they were kind of, a lot of them were like, yeah, I love the idea of it, but I hate reading digital, which is fine. And so we put the word out quite early on. I talked to a lot of women, and came back that, they were fascinated. They really wanted a magazine and would buy a magazine if it contained all the stuff they wanted it to contain and not have to read all the crap in between. And so we're very careful about who advertises in the magazine as well. They have to be businesses that kind of align with our values as well, that we wouldn't have anybody, I wouldn't want to align myself with a business that was synonymous with, say, sexism, or, making women feel bad about their bodies, their lives, themselves. So it's been a really interesting journey, but she basically, and I say she, I call the Good Girl Confessional a she, she's definitely female. basically evolved into a blog, into a podcast. And because by then I really was more interested in the stories of other women, my story's been told. I wanted to hear the stories of other women, and I wanted to know what they were doing out in the world and why a lot of these fascinating women that I was hearing about, people were, word of mouth, why weren't they getting any attention out there in mainstream media? And so as part of the platform, we launched the Good Girl Confessional podcast first. And then during the middle of the pandemic, when we realized there were a lot of female writers and creatives out there who were hit so hard during the pandemic, we actually brought the launch of the magazine forward and did it last year so that we could create paid opportunities for some amazing female writers. Obviously we're an independent publication and we can't, we have no desire to compete with, say, a Murdoch Press or those sort of big people out there. But for us, we really wanted to keep it very real, very honest, and we wanted it to absolutely be written by women for that reason. What's been interesting, it's been fully embraced, is that it came out as a print magazine. People were like, I can't believe it. And what's interesting is when people when they first got it, they were so shocked that it was really professional, so beautifully curated. There's a lot of work that goes into this magazine. And that it's treated, that all women in it, the writers, the women telling their stories, and the readers are treated with absolute respect. And I think that's been a massive marketing coup for us, because it's not happening in other publications.
Yeah. I love you. You've just given so much gold. So if someone is listening to this and they've got no desire to do a magazine or to do a blog or anything, like, just some of the things you were talking about that I wrote down, just from a pure business marketing point of view, see a problem, solve a problem. You saw a problem in the marketplace, you solved the problem with, your business model that you've got. You surveyed your audience and asked them what they wanted before you went guns blazing, like, oh, I'm going to do this. Like, I see it so often. People are like, what's that movie? Build it and they will come, that Kevin Costner did, like something, The Field of Dreams.
Field of Dreams.
That's it. If you build it, people won't come. But if you survey them beforehand and get a bit of an idea if they're going to embrace you, then, hopefully 80% of the people who said what you wanted them to say will actually come and embrace you. And your business values, like, so many small business owners don't know what their business values are and therefore don't know how to reflect them in their marketing or to attract the right people, because your business values, and therefore you're putting them out there and attracting the people that have the same business values. Like, it's just, take the magazine away. It's just, you've done so much amazing things that other people can learn from.
Oh, thank you so much, Jen. I think, that was a big thing for me when I founded it, but I couldn't do this by myself either, by the way. So when I put this out to an extraordinary amount of female creatives and said, this is my idea, what do you think? We were inundated, I think, like crazy. Hundreds of people overnight were sending us messages saying, I'm a writer, I'm an editor, I'm a creative, I'm an artist, I'm whatever, and we can help you. I'm in advertising, I'm this, I'm that. I think that was testament to the fact that we were on a winner, because these women were saying the same, oh, wow, we can't believe it. Yeah, I fully agree. We're not reflected back. I don't know of anything else out there like it. But it was, before I could do that, I really, really needed to know my why, fully understand my why. And that's big advice I'd give to anyone. Why are you starting this business? And really, as you say, understanding your values and standing by those values is really, really important. I have people say to me all the time, oh, you could put in this article about Britney Spears or whoever and get all this feed and whatever. But if it doesn't align with your values, and don't get me wrong, love Britney, that's not about her, but it's, if you start bowing down to that sort of stuff, you kind of lose your value and you lose sight of your own values. And I think that's been really important for us and something that is valued by our readers as well.
Yeah, I know there was a lot of pressure. Like, obviously, hopefully all of my listeners know about Buy from Bush Business, my enormous Facebook group. But there was real pressure as in the height of the pandemic for us to extend, like, obviously it's only for rural and regional business owners because everyone was hurting. Anyone in small business was hurting with the pandemic. And there was real pressure on us to let go of those values of supporting rural and regional small business and just support small business. But we knew the pandemic would end, and we also knew that rural and regional would still need our help. And I'm not saying that people in metropolitans don't, but that was our value, that was our core value, and there was a lot of pressure to change that, but we didn't. We did consider starting a whole other platform and then slapped each other and went, no, we're not doing that. There certainly
Absolutely
isn't the amount of hours in the day, but it's hard. And if we didn't know that value so well, it would have been easy to be led down a different line if you didn't understand what your values were.
Yeah, I think that's so true. And I've gone through that in the last, 12 months or 2 years, really, since we started the podcast, 12 months with the magazine. Obviously, the last 12 months has been a huge eye-opener in terms of what could we do better, how can we improve, etc. Temptation all the time to head down a different path. Oh, wait, we're not where we thought we would be in the first 12 months. Let's start something new. But I actually think, and, as you just so wisely said, knowing your value means you stand your ground and a little bit. And yes, you can always improve on things. And yes, you can continue to evolve as a business, absolutely. But I think if I went down a whole other path that didn't align with this value set, I'd be doing myself a huge disservice. And I think I'd be doing the brand and our readers, more importantly, a huge disservice.
Yeah, which is a great segue into my last question of what's next? What do you see in 2022 for WB40 and the Good Confessional podcast? Like, what's next with those?
Well, hopefully we get a little bit of a break over Christmas. Who knows? Because I was just talking about that before. Being anybody in a business will know that you work all the time. Mm-hmm. But I think for us next year, we're absolutely looking to expand into different avenues, some of it that I can't really talk about right now, but we're hugely excited. But I will say that there is going to be WB40 merchandise launched. That's exciting. And because really we're feminists who really are huge on helping other women to rise. And so we want to help people to be inspired. So our merchandise really will be inspiring, I hope. And we'll keep expanding. So next year, the magazine is going from a bi-monthly publication to a quarterly publication, but a much bigger offering. And I think that's something that's really was trial and error for us. People are mad for the bi-monthly magazine, but it's an incredible ask for a very, very tiny team to put together a very professional magazine in that short amount of space. And I think had it just been digital, that might have been doable. But I think because we get it to print and a whole lot more goes into a print magazine, which people probably in the background have no idea about, which is more than fair enough. Colour, paper, all of it. And we are really mindful about environmental issues. And so the paper that we use, for example, is really important to us. The printer that we use is really important to us. And, making sure that the colours are right and the images that we use in that magazine are massively important to us. Because we want women to feel empowered and okay, and we want them to see themselves reflected back. So there's a lot of work that goes into it. So next year, we're very excited that it will be a quarterly publication. This year, we took on an incredible social media manager, Debbie. I'll give a shout out to her, who's fabulous. She's brilliant. And what's been really great about that is one of our regular writers is Nikki Hind, and Debbie Larson, who is our social media manager, are both visually impaired people. And what they bring to this publication is fantastic in terms of their input into inclusivity. For the for people who are disabled. And I think that that's massively important. So we brought Nikki on board really early for that reason. And she's just a wealth of knowledge and she's so great. So next year, we want to expand on that as well and have more articles every quarter. So a much bigger magazine. And so there you go. I think that's really interesting when everyone goes, oh, print is dead. And I'm going, well, our magazine's getting bigger. Because that's what our readership wants. And I think, as you said, from a marketing point of view, there's huge, it's a huge area that is overlooked. Women in their 40s and 50s also have disposable income a lot of the time, and we're being overlooked in terms of marketing. So next year, we're going out there even further from a business point of view, looking for more advertisers, regular advertisers in our magazine who align with our values and who are doing great things out there. One of the big things that we do is we give free advertising space and editorial to non-profits and organisations out there who are supporting women. So in this latest edition of the magazine, for example, we've given free ad space to Share the Dignity for their It's in the Bag campaign. Those things are really important. And we've done that for Love Your Sister and a number of people who've come on board. And we're so happy to partner with them and give them that support because it is really important. And, much like yourself, Spend With Us, supporting businesses in the bush has been really important as well. Especially during the bushfires and then the pandemic is massive. And so we've been really proud to be able to support that. So next year we'll be looking at that on a regular basis and who we can support. And I'm super excited.
Yeah, so good, so good. So anyone who's listening who wants to buy a subscription for themselves or a present coming into Christmas could be a really great subscription to buy your female friend or wife or whoever you might have. Where's the best place for them to find out more about the podcast, but also the magazine?
You can find out all about it at wb40.com. And just go into our shop there and you'll see the magazine. You can buy it in print or digital versions. And yes, you can buy subscriptions or single copies. And I think it's a beautiful Christmas gift and we're getting a lot of people buying for friends, mums, sisters, girlfriends. It's great.
Yeah, that sounds beautiful. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom. I've loved hearing more about your journey to the magazine, but I just love the idea that you're thinking outside the box and giving your audience what they want. So many congratulations for doing that, but also thank you for coming on the podcast. It's been a blast.
Thank you so much, Jen. It's my absolute pleasure. I'm super excited. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. See ya.
Bye.
I really hope you enjoyed that chat with Sandy. Again, I love any business owner who knows their audience so well that they can make such just strategic marketing steps to build their business because they listen to their audience, because they know who their audience is. Again, there's a lesson in that for all of us. Issue 6 of WB40 is now available, so go and head to wb40.com and purchase it. Support another small business owner who's really changing the world for the better. Oh, and in case you're interested as well, I was on Sandy's podcast not so long ago. Her podcast is called The Good Girl Confessional, and I got to be episode 50, which I felt a little bit special about. So you can find that in any of your podcast apps, but of course you can find the link to it in the show notes, which are at socialmediamarketing.com.au/168. But that is it for episode 168. I'd love you to come and join the conversation in the Like-Minded Business Owners group and let me know how much you enjoyed this interview with Sandy. And I'm pretty sure Sandy's in the group as well, so tag her and let her know how much you loved her story. Otherwise, I'll see you next week for episode 169. But in the meantime, let's make sure we are connected on social. You'll find me on Instagram at Jen Donovan, Facebook at Social Media and Marketing Australia. Of course, you'll find me over on LinkedIn, which is one of the places I like to hang out the most. Of course, at Jen Donovan over there. But whatever you do, remember, my small business peeps, as my opening song says, there is no point in dreaming small.
No time like the present. Tell it like you feel it, say it proud, be true, and let us see you for the star that you are. No point in dreaming small.
I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land, the Yorta Yorta people, on which I record this podcast and conduct my business today, and pay my respects to their elders, past and present. I extend this respect to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here with us today as well.